Hey Raghunath, tell everyone about our Patreon community.
Sure, Kaustubha. The Wisdom of the Sages Patreon community is an incredible online yoga resource. If you like the type of yoga wisdom and culture we share on the show, then our Patreon community is a great next step. This is a listener-supported podcast, and any level of sponsorship will unlock a wide range of live and archived classes, talks, and even workshops.
Raghunath teaches, I teach, and we have a host of other excellent teachers on topics ranging from yoga philosophy, asana classes, storytelling, Ayurveda, kirtan, cooking, meditation, and a lot more.
We even have an incredible online Bhakti 12-step recovery group.
So if you want to check it out, go to patreon.com/wisdom of the sages.
All right, let's get it on.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Live from Super Soul Farm, this is Wisdom of the Sages, a daily yoga podcast with your host, Raghunath, and co-host and senior educator at the Bhakti Center in New York, Kaustubha. Welcome to the show, everybody. Welcome to it's Friday's study of the Srimad Bhagavatam. And it's Hermann Hesse week. A lot of positive feedback in Hermann Hesse week. To tell you the truth, Kaustubha, I'm still stunned. What did you end up naming the episode yesterday?
We called it, something about the inner Buddha, Siddhartha, the inner Buddha, and universal completeness.
Because all night I was just laying in bed thinking about that show. Actually, it was, you know what? It was like, our friend Moby, who was on the show. If you haven't heard our Moby interview, it was one of the early ones. Mm-hmm. But Moby's got that record, Everything is Wrong. And so that whole concept yesterday that no. And I used to really be like, yeah, everything is wrong. Everything is wrong. Oh my God, you can't like drink the water in the rivers, and you can't, even if you want an organic garden, they might frack through your neighbor's yard, and there goes the water table, and there's natural disasters and unnatural disasters, and what are we doing to our children? And everything is wrong. And it's almost like that's a mantra, that everything is wrong. And then when you start saying everything is wrong, you start to look why it's wrong. And then yesterday you said everything is right.
Oh,
everything is correct.
There's Hermann Hesse, and then ultimately the Upanishad said it.
And the Upanishad said it. And that's where they get it all from. But everything is right. And I could not stop thinking everything is perfectly right. And that is sometimes it's a tough pill to swallow, but you're saying as you go deeper, then it gets, your life gets a little bit more solid, and then it gets rid of anxiety. It gets rid of the blaming, and it actually releases you from a lot of mental anguish. That was my realization yesterday. And I was laying in bed going, I hope he named the show Everything is Right.
Oh, let me see. If you would have suggested that, I would have.
You know why? Because it didn't fully hit me till later. Through the course of the day, it just kept on replaying in my mind. Everything is right. Good morning, everybody. Everything is right today.
Well, again, ideally, that leads that the deeper realization that one gets. In other words, through the practice of accepting what is, and rather than battling with the material energy at every moment, one can harvest some very deep realizations, and through that a very deep sense of compassion will manifest.
That's so Bhakti recovery group, I think.
And well, my point is, and then you may find that within your realm of influence, you can make changes in this world, right? You can address sufferings of people, hopefully in the most effective way. So there is, it's a kind of like a dual thing, right? It's not ignoring that there are problems in the world, but at the same time, it's understanding that these problems exist because we're disconnected, But in another sense, it's moving to connect us. Let's help ourselves and help others understand how to reconnect, and then this world will have played its perfect role for us. We will have understood it, and it all will have come together.
But what do you think about this realization that once you start saying everything is wrong, then that becomes the lens in which you see the world?
Yeah.
You're just like looking to find where things are wrong. And when you start to say that even within my troubles, even with my troubled situation or my brokenness, there's a rightness to it as well. And what is the rightness to it? And then you start digging deep for like, how can I find how this is a benevolent thing?
Well, you know, I think, and again, I'm just trying to bounce a little bit. You're coming on with a full-throated kind of like everything is right, which I appreciate in this truth. But at the same
Toxic
time,
positivity.
well, the thing is, you know, remember at the end of that quote, I'm pulling it up now, yesterday's quote from Siddhartha. It said this: everything only requires my consent, only my willingness, my loving agreement to be good for me, to do nothing but work for my benefit, to be unable to ever harm me. So, I mean, just from that, if we were to accept that as a type of gospel truth or something like that, right? But the point is, it's like, for me, this world is working perfectly. Not that it's not working for others, but in other words, let me not become callous to the suffering of others. But first, let me realize how this world is actually working. Let the world and how it's meant to shape one. Let myself become open to that, rather than just complain or become depressed about what's happening in my life. Let me see how it can do good for me, how it can be beneficial for me, how I'm meant to improve through it. Rather than telling everyone else, "Hey, everything is fine. Don't."
Yeah, it's
There's
more
a
of an
place for that,
internal
but
thing.
especially
if someone's going through some great pain, you're not be like, "Hey, everything's fine. Just get over it."
Right.
I'm not saying that.
Yeah.
It's the lens which I see the world through myself, and for my you don't put that out there. It's your own stuff.
Or you do to whatever extent it can be understood. But if it's not going to be understood, it's pointless, right? And it does come off as callous and
Sure. And
turns people off to the whole idea.
Then I'd say serenity now.
Okay. Right.
So you know what I'm talking about.
I do.
Okay. You want to hear a little nugget from Mr. Hess?
Yeah,
it's Herman Hess week.
By the way, I just wanted to thank Samantha Burrier, who
she's from Vermont. She's from Vermont.
No, I got New Jersey over here.
Oh, you know what? Yes.
Yeah.
She's Kelly Skinner's buddy. That's why I confused her with Vermont.
Oh, gotcha. Well, she seems to have some kind of role to play there at Rutgers, the writing program there. And she sent some research that she's done on Siddhartha and Herman Hesse and the connection to the Bhagavad Gita. Very interesting. Thank you for sending that, Samantha. I really appreciated that.
You want to tell us, or are you going to keep?
I could get into it a little bit
between you and Samantha.
Well, why don't I share a little bit?
Sure.
So this is, she says, please see below and attached for some info I put together from a scholarly article on Hesse's Siddhartha and the Bhagavad Gita by Eugene F. Timpe.
Interesting.
So here's what that Eugene had to say. In 1911, Hesse made a journey to India. In 1920, while he was composing Siddhartha, he wrote, quote, "My preoccupation with India, which is now almost 20 years old and has gone through many stages, seems to me to have reached a new stage of development. So far, my reading, searching, and feeling was really only for the philosophical, the purely spiritual, the Vedantic, the Buddhist Indian culture, the Upanishads, the speeches of Buddha, and the Bhagavad Gita were the focus of this world. Only recently have I come closer to the actual religious India of the gods, the Vishnu and Indra, Brahma, and Krishna." His interest in Indian ideas, an interest which was furthered by his reading of Schopenhauer, was based upon how close acquaintances with a number of basic works of Indian philosophy in German translation during the period when he was actually but intermittently occupied with writing Siddhartha from 1919 to 1922, he turned to Indian philosophy on at least one crucial occasion after he had reached the point where Siddhartha rejected suicide. Hess was unable to go on with the book. only after he had occupied himself with painting, the study of Bakken. Mary, want to help us with that one?
Mara, come on, Mara.
And-
yes.
and a renewed study of was he able to affirm Siddhartha's salvation. Anyway, there's more that she shared, but
Don't share
some
anymore.
interesting stuff. Okay.
Please don't share anymore. No, that was good.
I mean, I could go on and on. It's a whole
It
article.
did
but-
parallel his life, though, right? He struggled. He didn't take up. He was raised a Protestant. Didn't take that up. Went his own way. Found his own path. Dabbled with sinful activities. Took him full circle back to the spirituality. That
Okay.
maybe his missionary parents were a little bitter with, but in the biggest picture, his parents probably connected him with some type of deep-rooted dharma.
Yeah, a lot of speculation about his parents.
A lot of
what do you know about his parents?
Later, that's okay. What do I know? What do I know? Wikipedia is what I know. Thank you.
Even from Wikipedia, you don't know how they were reacting. Okay.
All right.
So this will wrap up our Herman Hesse week with this nugget, right?
I say we have Morrissey week next week. Let's get Paramananda on
I
this.
don't know if I can.
You don't like
Okay, well,
Morrissey?
well,
Morrissey is a
I
very
just
deep
don't get
guy.
it. I just
Look at
don't
Jiva
get it.
G. She's kicking her heels together.
I just don't get it. It sounds like
You don't get
satire to
Morrissey.
me.
Bruna G. You get Morrissey? Give me a thumbs up if you get Morrissey. Morrissey. Oh my God.
How did she respond?
The Smiths. She's just going, no, I never heard. Oh, thumbs down. Oh,
Bruna
forget
has
it.
like narrow interests. When she invests her heart in something, it's like she goes full on, so she can't spread it too wide.
Narayani, Bob, Lee. They're all saying yes. Smiths. Aaron Erskine is
Okay.
Stephen Covey week. Oh, that's a good one. I based my whole life on Stephen Covey.
Yeah, and that would
All
be
my
easy to
preaching
do.
is on Stephen Covey.
That would be an easy one. I could do that. If people want to do Morrissey, start sending stuff in, and we can check it out.
Yes.
Okay.
All right, let's go.
Back to Herman Hesse. Thank
Herman
you.
Hesse, and then back to the Bhagavatam. Okay. One squirrel at a time.
Should we do announcements first?
Yeah.
We have a Bhakti recovery group at 1 p.m. today.
Okay.
And then if people want to email us their questions at Q&A day tomorrow, wisdomofthesages108@gmail.com.
Get him in quick.
Great. Nugget. Ready?
Yeah.
He
this
saw
is from-
mankind.
Well, hold
This
it.
is
Where
for
is?
Siddhartha. Herman Hesse.
Thank you.
Siddhartha. He saw mankind going through life in a childlike or animal-like manner, which he loved but also despised at the same time. Been there, done that, right? Beginning
Let's
stages
talk
of
about that. But
bhakti.
yeah,
Okay.
but let's keep reading.
Read it
but-
through first. Okay.
Yeah.
He saw mankind going through a childlike, animal-like manner, which he loved but also despised at the same time. He saw them toiling. He saw them suffering and become gray for the sake of things which seemed to him to be entirely unworthy of this price. For money, for little pleasures, for being slightly honored, he saw them scolding and insulting each other. He saw them complaining about a pain at which a samana would only smile. A samana must be like a sage.
An ascetic.
And suffering because of deprivations which a samana would not feel.
Yeah.
Right? A samana must be one who's steady of mind. I've never heard that.
Yeah, I mean,
word.
specifically in this case, it's referring to these ascetics. And if you read the book, they're like, it's almost like they're kind of seem like Nagababas, like they're
Right.
naked or nearly naked, ashen covered, dreadlocked, especially their method was deprivation of the senses.
Right.
So Siddhartha, when he left home, again, he was meditating at home, and he was feeling like, not only is this not going anywhere, there's nobody in our village that has gone anywhere, that can kind of lead the way, that can kind of. Why are you sending me messages?
Oh, was that for you? What? Did I send you a message?
You just sent me a WhatsApp message.
No,
We're
I
talking
didn't.
here, guy. You did.
Oh, sorry. I thought it was the message board. You caught me.
Busted. Okay. But in any case, Siddhartha, so then he left and went traveling with these hardcore ascetics, right? They're just like performing intense austerities fasting. It's like it describes, like standing in the ring of fire, going into the cold water in the winter,
That's the
enduring all
thing,
kind
man.
of
The
physical
Ring of
hardships.
Fire.
Yeah, they're
I wonder if
tapasvis.
he got that from the. I wonder if
Burning
Johnny
Ring of
Cash
Fire.
got that from the sadhus.
Johnny Cash week next week.
Johnny-
I fell into the burning ring of fire. Yeah, it's in any case. So he's gone. He's lived that life, and then he also heard from Buddha, right? From the Buddha
yeah.
himself, and then he decided that I'm not going to be a follower. I need to find truth on my own, and not through denying the senses, but through indulging the senses, and then he gets disgusted with that and almost commits suicide and comes out the other end. And but this is talking about this verse, I believe, or this passage, I believe, is the time where Siddhartha has entered into the society and he's living a materialistic life, right? He's taken up, a relationship with a prostitute. And they become lovers. She's kind of hooked him up with like a business opportunity where he's kind of like a consultant in the business world and in trade. He's gotten into alcohol. He's gotten into gambling, but for a while he was able to do it still with the samana mindset, right? Like he was observing them and learning from observing them. Now gradually that lifestyle began to drag him down, and he started to become more and more like them. But this is when he still has some kind of clarity in his observation.
Sometimes you and I, we meet these people who are like interested in bhakti, but always keep it on the periphery.
Mm-hmm.
And we sometimes know them from the time they were 20, and then they're 30, and they're still there hovering in the periphery. And then finally they just like click in at 50 or 60. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
There's people like that.
And how does that relate to what we're reading?
They have to sort of like
okay.
dip into the material world only to don't touch the stove. It's hot. They have to touch the stove so they can fully get it before they can reject it.
And at a certain point, I suppose at a certain point, the books or the knowledge speaks to them in a way that's different. In some
Somehow
way.
you and me were like sort of completely frustrated with the material world in our teenage life. But sometimes people have to all right, this makes sense. I like it, but
I'm not ready for it. Yeah.
Not ready for it. I'm just not ready for it yet.
Yeah. So let's go back. So this is his observation of materialists, right? He's living in the materialistic world, and he's observing it through the eyes of an ascetic, right? Through the eyes of the Upanishads, through the eyes of of a hardcore renunciate. And so it says this. And I thought this was really interesting. It seems like you did too, Raghunath, right? He saw mankind going through life in a childlike or animal-like manner, which he loved and also despised at the same time.
So this is me in my very early stages of bhakti and trying to control my senses. You'd see people enjoying their senses. That it's sexuality or indulgence in things, and you're trying to control your senses, and the whole world is they're having like a party on the Titanic, and you're trying to say, no, control your senses, control your mind. At the same time, you still have an attraction to it, this childlike, animal-like, behavior, and you're feeling like, no, don't do it. But at the same time, with that strong attachment, you're torn between two worlds, trying to cross a river with your foot in two different canoes. Just not going to work. You just got to choose. If you want indulgence, choose indulgence, and you'll get the results of indulgence, right? That's why we have a bhakti recovery group for people who chose indulgence. And then we have, what do you call it? And then we have a path of devotion, which includes a certain degree of renunciation. But in your immature stages, when it's not like really fully realized, you're sort of like renouncing. Oh man, look at the world. It really looks fun.
I saw it I read this another way, and I'm assuming I'm interpreting this way in a different way than Herman Hesse intended it.
Mm-hmm.
Because the way that I see it is that when there are two general categories of ways that people interpret Vedanta, and one is through devotion, and one is where the aim is to kind of, you know, we're all where there's only oneness, and so there's no relationship, right?
Yeah.
So like as Bhaktivedantins, as
I
people
like
that
that.
accept it, that in the absolute reality there is relationship.
We're
Right.
Bhakti-Vedantins. I like how you said that.
Yeah, there is love. There is all that we see here, right? That all that we see in this world is a reflection of what takes place in the spiritual reality. Now, if you actually see things that way, then even within materialism and even within foolishness, there's something there that's lovable, right? Because it's like, it's almost just right. It just needs to be a little redirected. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So do you?
I ran with it a
Don't
different
sound
way, but yeah.
Yeah, so that's, in other words, and again, I don't believe that Herman Hesse intended it this way, but sometimes I have a feeling similar to this, where I see people acting childish or foolish. Their attachments are based on ignorance, and it's playing out in the forms of their relationships or their behavior. And on one hand, I say, wow, this person is completely lost in illusion. But on the other hand, I say it just needs to be switched in another direction, and all the enthusiasm and all the personality that they have,
Right.
you know, and all it's charming, and it just needs to be redirected, and it's perfect.
All right. I like that now.
You like
I
that?
like that.
Okay, so let's continue. He saw mankind going through life in a childlike or animal-like manner, which he loved but also despised at the same time. Now this gets interesting, right? He saw them toiling. This is where we really have to look at ourselves. Am I one of these people, right? Am I
Am I
toiling?
a toiler?
Am I a toiler? He saw them toiling, saw them suffering and becoming gray, right? Worrying and getting anxiety for the sake of things which seemed to him to be entirely unworthy of this price. For money, for little pleasures, for
Little
being
pleasure.
slightly
Just little
honored.
pleasure.
Slightly honored, right? Like
Not really honored, but you're we're gonna give you a little position, and we're gonna put you up to like a executive vice position. Where you're,
yeah, whatever.
we're gonna change your office to get slightly bigger.
A bigger cubicle.
So,
Yeah, for money, for little pleasures, for being slightly honored, he saw them scolding and insulting each other. Oh, don't we see that everywhere we turn? True?
Yeah.
He saw them complaining. He saw them. So that's like saying there are petty things that we get all caught up in, and we're paying a price for it. Our minds are disturbed. You know, just like Bhagavatam begins, right? Manda sumanda matiyo, manda bhagyo padruta, right? That
The mind is always disturbed.
the mind, you know, above all, our minds are always disturbed, right? So Siddhartha's seeing that playing out right in front of us. And why? For so little. He saw them complaining about pain, at which a samana would only smile, and suffering because of deprivations, which a samana would not feel. Now, this is important too. That this is like, why is austerity, tapas, right? Why is it emphasized? You need to practice a little tapas in life, you know, because you need to, there does have to be, in one sense, we need like a thin skin. Like we need to, particularly on the path of bhakti, right? We need to feel for others. We need to feel others' pain, you know. We need to be sensitive to emotion. But at the other hand, you know, we need a bit of a thick skin too. Like the things of this world, we have to just be able to kind of shake them off. And part of the way you do that is by practicing austerity. And that's why some life in an ashram can be really good for someone, right? Waking up early, taking that cold shower, you know, fasting occasionally, right? Like,
Yeah.
you know, for most people, it's not only healthy, but it's also just like denying the senses a little bit intentionally. It gives one the ability to move through life and not be so disturbed with how things, you just kind of shake them off. I love the way Herman Hesse writes, you know, he saw them complaining about pain at which a samana would only smile, and suffering because of deprivations which a samana would not even feel. You know? So yeah, it's
a good little section.
It's a good little section, yeah. It makes us think of, the same kind
I
of
mean,
things
I
that
see it all
we
the
talk about a
time. You're
lot.
dragging people through India. You know, we have like we're living like in a luxury. You know, we have a nice AC bus. We're staying at a nice hotel, and still, because we've never left this incredibly comfortable country that we live in. When there's a little bit of austerity, people freak out. They break down. They melt. Whereas there's like sadhus walking on the street barefoot. We were just talking about. I was hanging out with the original Youngblood. He's a guy we took to local guy Ian that we.
Original Youngblood. Hey,
we
we haven't
haven't-
seen Youngblood in a while. Where's Youngblood?
I don't know, but this is the guy I
Youngblood,
named
reach
him
out to us.
Yeah, this is the guy I named him after. But we went to Nepal 2 years ago, and Youngblood ended up staying on for like 5 months during the lockdown of Nepal, and he just lived with sadhus in the Himalayas. And he was just like, I was just complaining about stuff, but it was cold, and we were living in a cave, and I was hanging out with these yogis, and they were like these old ladies just in the Himalayas who
Right.
all barefoot, hunched over, carrying stuff, and they're just not complaining about the stuff I complain about, So there's something, about that fasting or a reset or like a little detachment or some self-imposed austerity that can just give yourself a tolerant mind.
Yeah.
Sometimes we got to pull back like that because I live in my mind, in a world of complaining, and that's not good for me or anybody.
Actually, there's stories I could tell. There's a couple of stories that come to mind.
What you got?
Well, one is I wasn't there, but I heard about this, and it's interesting, and I want to be careful how I frame this, because this took place on a yatra that the devotees at a Chaupati did, which Radhanath Swami was leading, right? Which means like a couple times a year, that whole community, like thousands, it got it to be like 5,000 or 6,000.
5,000.
people.
Yeah.
Yeah, would be traveling sometimes to Vrindavan and sometimes to Navadweep, in Bengal.
Just imagine that, people. Ever travel with 30 people? It's a lot. 40 tons. 5,000, practically ridiculous.
When you travel with 5,000 people, think of how many buses that, because on this one they went to South India. Okay, so they're traveling throughout South India together. When you have to cook for 5,000 people, when you have to transport
15,000 chapatis.
house 5,000 people, and I forget how many people fit in a typical bus, and you need like hundreds of buses to move all these people. And so it's our buddy, right, who's really heads the whole thing up.
Radhakund,
the guy manages the entire thing. Incredibly great soul.
It's incredible.
And so and they do this every year or several times every year. And he does such an amazing job of providing and caring for everyone, which is obviously difficult. But what I heard was on this one trip, just things got a little messed up. It's so hard to manage the whole thing. So people were going through some kind of discomforts because whether the buses weren't ready or the hotel, whatever, the logistics were getting a little screwed up, and it was manifesting, and that things weren't working as smooth as they usually did.
Where are you going with this story? I'm interested.
Well,
I'm on the edge of my seat.
At that point, there began to be some kind of complaining going around. And then Radhanath Swami addressed it in the next kind of like public, talk that he gave, and just with when Maharaj gets grave.
Yeah, that's a little scary.
Usually he's just like just full on softness and all that.
That's sweet, and then the mood changes.
Yeah, sometimes you can change that mood where it's like a hardcore ascetic, like one of these samanas, like a person who he was. He walked and the mountains and slept under the trees and lived that austere life. And he still
lives a pretty austere life. He still sleeps. I've invited him over at Super Soul Farm. I had this nice bed set up for him. He sets up right on the floor next to the nice bed.
Yeah. And so he spoke to everyone. He said, I am hearing that something has happened on this yatra that has never happened on our yatras before. That people are complaining about, and he just went deep into, we're all so fortunate to have this opportunity, and people are working so hard to accommodate us. And if things don't go exactly right, are we going to complain, or do we tolerate that, and keep our mind fixed, in the depth of our spiritual intention. It was a talk in that mood, and you can imagine like how that must go to the heart, and we do need to experience that kind of message, like it just starts to cut through, So anyway, that was one thing that I thought of. And another thing I thought of was once, I remember, and you and I, back in the day, we used to go on this Navidwipa Mandala Parikrama. Right.
Another yatra. Through the jungles of Bengal.
Yeah.
Incredible. It's incredible.
It was 9 days, because Navadvipa means 9 islands. And it really is kind of 9 areas nowadays. There may have been smaller little streams or rivers that kind of separated the 9 at one point. But, now there is the Jalangi and the Ganges that separate them to some degree. But it's 9 areas, but they call them 9 islands. The 9 islands of Sri Chaitanya's pastimes where he was born and raised. And this Parikrama was kind of a tradition in our lineage where you go out for 9 days and 9 nights, right? You sleep out and you pass through. It was originally Jiva Goswami and Nityananda went on this Parikrama, right?
It's like Hare Krishna summer camp.
It's kind of.
It's what it is. It's super fun. It was breathtaking. The food was like amazing. And you don't have to carry any of your stuff. They're carrying it on like a cart, a bullock cart. And you have the most adorable, Bengal. I was going to say adorable because they're all very small. In Bengal, everybody's very small. These adorable brahmacharis just singing, and they have this very high-pitched voice singing these beautiful Bengali bhajans. And you're walking through rice paddy fields, crossing boats, with a boatman who's just got a stick getting you across the rivers. It's like breathtaking.
And there are incredible kirtans and incredible talks and incredible sangha, and the whole thing was really life-changing, right? And so I used to do that pretty much yearly. I think I missed it 1 year back in the early 90s, but mostly every year I was doing it. And I remember once being back in the States shortly after it had taken place, and there was I think it was like within the typical morning Bhagavatam class time period in the temple, and different people that had been on that yatra were sharing their experiences, right? And one person was saying, this person was like an austere monk, really special soul too, and he was saying, it was the most incredible experience of my life. He was just like, I never thought I would experience anything like that in my life. Every moment of it was so precious. He was just going on and on. And then another person got up and they're like, oh, it was so hard. It was like, there's, they're just like, it was just,
wasn't that hard?
Well, for some people, maybe it is, right? But if you had, where you sleep and how you bathe and so on.
Me and Kaustubha were sleeping under the stars. Remember that?
Sleeping on the stars.
We wouldn't sleep in the tents. We slept under the stars.
Yeah. And so
I wrote about it in my book. All right, go on.
Oh, looking forward to that.
Yeah, I wrote about it.
So in any case, my point is that because the way that I see, because this person had practiced more austerity in their life, right? Maybe even how they grew up, but also maybe currently in their spiritual practice, that it prepares you to see things more clearly, and it prepares you to be more open to deeper spiritual experience. So two people went through the same thing. One of them, because they had practiced austerity, they were the most precious moments of the person's entire life, and for another person, it was just like, oh man, I'm never going to do that again.
I think a beautiful message throughout this is adding austerity to your life makes the mind peaceful. It's a pinch at first, but ultimately then you can start to take anything. Especially if you've lived in India, spent a lot of time in India, then you come back to America, it's like nothing. The austerities you have to deal with in India. Every day is like living in the forest. That was the feeling back then. Electricity's gone. The bathrooms are like you're in prison. Walking around barefoot, cutting up your feet.
But what do they say about austerity, Raghunath?
Austerity makes the heart grow fonder.
No. I don't think that was it.
What is it? Austerity is the mother of invention.
Nope.
What is austerity?
Try one more time.
What is it?
It is
austerity.
of the Brahmanas.
Of the Brahmanas. It's the wealth of the Brahmanas. I knew it was something. It did have that flow like that.
Yeah.
It's the wealth of the Brahmanas. The Brahmanas have no material money, but they have austerity, and that's their wealth.
And that's
and
their
because of
wealth.
it, it keeps their mind incredibly calm and tolerant. Whenever there's no tolerance, there's complaining in the mind, which we suffer. All right, let's dive into the Bhagavatam. Ready?
Let's do it.
Narayanam namaskritya naram chaiva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayam mudirayat. Before we start in the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of our conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances to the Supreme Lord Narayan, to Narayan Rishi, the supremmost human being, to Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and to Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nasta prayeshva badreshu nityam bhagavat sevaya bhagavati uttama bhaktir bhavati naishtiki. By regular attendance in classes of the Bhagavatam and by rendering service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart will become eradicated. Loving service to the Supreme Lord, who is praised with transcendental songs, will be established as an irrevocable fact. Om Gyana Tumarandasya Gyana Anjana Shalakiya Chakshur Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance. My teachers are opening my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my obeisances at their lotus feet. Mara, where are we at?
Reading from Canto 4, Chapter 17, Text 27.
I think we got Marge Prithu kind of threatening the earth in the form of a cow because she has not been supplying food for humanity.
This is the opposite of Earth Day. This is when you get mad at the earth. Okay. You are very much puffed up with pride and have become lost, almost insane. Presently, you have assumed the form of a cow by your mystic powers. Nonetheless, I shall cut you into small pieces like grain, and I will uphold the entire population by my personal mystic powers. At this time, Prithu Maharaj became exactly like Yamaraj, right? He's the one that gives out the karma. Yeah, the Lord of Death, the Lord of Yamas. And his whole body appeared to be very angry. In other words, he was anger personified. After hearing him, the planet Earth began to tremble. She surrendered and with folded hands began to speak. The planet Earth spoke.
So now let's slow down now. So Bhagavatam is set up, a situation now framed these prayers that we're going to hear now coming from the earth in a very unusual position, right? Normally when we hear about the goddess, the earth goddess, she's nothing but, sometimes we hear she's like burdened, right? With the and as a matter of fact, the way the whole Mahabharata plays out is because the burden that the earth is bearing. So sometimes we read about the earth coming forward to Lord Vishnu through the devas, saying, the burden is too much for me to bear anymore. The way these people behave is just too much. And as we said earlier, last week or something like that, what's the heaviest burden for the earth to bear?
Someone who's ungrateful.
No.
The ungrateful?
No. You said that with such confidence.
Mara?
I thought you.
Mara?
A liar.
That's right, a liar. Remember?
Liar. How did I get ungrateful? All right.
Yeah, I mean that grateful one's important.
We don't like
too.
you though. We don't like those guys either.
Well, no, there's an important
Ungrateful,
one
I know.
from Ramayana about gratitude, right? I think you're probably conflating the two. What is that one from the Ramayana about gratitude? When that's spoken by God, why can't I think of Ram's little brother? What's his name again?
Lakshman.
Thank you. That Lakshman spoke to Vibhishana, was it?
I can't
Remember he said something because it was his duty to kind of stand up and help Ram now because Ram had helped him, but he was just kind of lazing around, and then he spoke something about gratitude. Maybe someone could. You don't remember that quote?
I don't remember.
Okay, well maybe someone could find it. It's a really important quote about gratitude from Ramayana. But no, this one's about a liar. But in any case, here's the earth is in an unusual position where actually she's kind of in the wrong, right? Where she's not properly reciprocating with humanity's, sacrifice or offerings. And so they're going hungry. It's his job to step up and work this whole thing out. He's become very protective of the people, stood up and threatened the earth, who's taken this form of a cow because she kind of felt like I'm safer this way. And it reaches this point where she surrendered. She says, okay, and she prays to Prithu, who we call a Shaktavesha avatar, right? He's like, in one sense, he's human, but or like a jiva, like I don't know if ordinary is the right word, but he's not God himself. But he is kind of the representative and been empowered by God, and she's praying to him as if he were God. Somehow she's praying to that presence of God within him. And she has a lot of interesting things to say.
Okay.
Hit it.
Text 29. Text
29.
29.
You're right.
The planet Earth spoke. My dear Lord, O Supreme Personality of Godhead, you are transcendental in your position, and by your material energy, you have expanded yourself in various forms and species of life through the interaction of the three gunas of material nature. Unlike your other masters, you always remain in your transcendental position and are not affected by the material creation, which is subject to different material interactions. Consequently, you are not bewildered by material activities.
Okay.
Text
so
30.
That's an interesting point right there, right? Because he's angry, right? He's threatening. But
Sure.
she's coming forward and saying, you're not bewildered right now. This
Right.
is, yeah. Okay.
There's a difference between manifesting your anger, like you're choosing to be angry,
Yeah,
as
righteous
opposed to
anger.
being controlled by anger. He's wielding anger for a purpose. The planet Earth continued. My dear Lord, you are the complete conductor of the material creation. You have created this cosmic manifestation and the three material qualities. And therefore you have created me, the planet Earth, the resting place of all living entities. Yet you are always fully independent, my Lord. Now that you are present before me and ready to kill me with your weapons, let me know where I should go to take shelter and tell me who can give me protection. Text 31. In the beginning of creation, you created all these moving and non-moving living entities by your inconceivable energy. Through this very same energy, you are now prepared to protect the living entities. Indeed, you are the supreme protector of Dharma. Why are you so anxious to kill me, even though I am now in the form of a cow? My dear Lord, although you are one, by your inconceivable potencies, you have expanded yourself in many forms. Through the agency of Brahma, you have created this universe. You are therefore directly the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Those who are not sufficiently experienced cannot understand your transcendental activities because these persons are covered by your illusory energy. My dear Lord, by your own potencies, you are the original cause of the material elements, the performing instruments, the senses, the workers of the senses, the controlling demigods, the intelligence and the ego, as well as everything else. By your energy, you manifest this entire cosmic creation. You maintain it and you dissolve it. Through your energy alone, everything is sometimes manifest and sometimes not manifest. You are therefore the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the cause of all causes. I offer my respect to you. My dear Lord, you are always unborn, once in the form of the original boar. You rescued me as a pig, boar. You rescued me from the
Not a boring
waters in the
person.
bottom. You're not the original boar. You're not boring. You rescued me from the waters in the bottom of the universe. Through your own energy, you created all the physical elements, the senses, and the heart from for the maintenance of the world. My dear Lord, in this way, you once protected me by rescuing me from the water, and consequently, your name has been famous as Dara, he who holds the planet Earth. Yet, at the present moment, in the form of a great hero, you are about to kill me with sharpened arrows. I am, however, just like a boat on the water, keeping everything afloat. Text 36. My dear Lord, I am also the creation of one of your energies, composed of the three gunas. Consequently, I am bewildered by your activities. Even the activities of your devotees cannot be understood. And what to speak of your pastimes? Thus, everything appears to be contradictory and wonderful.
That's the end of the chapter.
Yeah, it's different. For a devotee, they can manifest anger. They can call anger to be of service, but they're not possessed by anger. So here he is, Prithu is manifesting this anger to milk the earth. It's going to milk the earth.
And the earth, you can see, like, in one sense, this is where we're meant to calm ourselves, right? Like, she came to a point of surrender. She was fearful, she was suffering, and she turned to God and said, I recognize that you are beyond all confusion, all bewilderment. As a matter of fact, this entire world is your energies working, right? And the energies that your energies that bewilder people, you're beyond those energies. So whatever's happening through your will is happening, for the good. And it may even seem to be contradictory or wonderful. Like the last word we heard was wonderful, right? Not wonderful in the sense like this is great, but wonderful in the sense that it causes wonder.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Almost unbelievable.
Yeah, and so now she's kind of surrendered to him, saying, I may have done right, I may have done wrong. Okay, I admit, like I'm fallible here, maybe I thought I was just, maybe I was wrong, maybe I'm acting under the influence of your illusory energy. I'm surrendering to you, right? Because I know that you're beyond that. Help me understand, and then with a little psychological kind of thing too, or like, you're kind of known and famous for having saved me before, right?
Right.
So like, why don't we, you had this affection for me and this care for me. Are you willing to still show me that care?
That was sweet.
So we'll hear more in the next chapter about how he deals with her. But, here we got Mathurananda shared with us the Ramayana passage that I was speaking about.
What is it?
Okay, so this has, I haven't read it yet, but I'm assuming that it's the right one that we're looking for. Lakshman, this is from Ramayana. Lakshman entered the inner apartments of the palace. So you want to describe what's happening here, Raghunath? Do you know?
This is, no, I don't know when this is.
Sugriv was like this kind of monkey king.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
And Lord Ram and him had entered into an agreement that he had some issues with his brother, Ram was going to help him with, and Ram did. And that he was going to help Ram find Sita.
And he didn't at this
and
point.
And so he got his end of the deal, but then he was kind of like just, not only did he not respond, but he was just kind of lazing around. And
he was like indulgent,
comforts,
partying as the new king.
Yeah.
And Lakshman came to chastise him.
So Lakshman entered the inner apartments of the palace, and when he saw the fabulous opulence, along with groups of beautiful women, his anger once again became aroused. Sugriv was sitting on a couch embracing Ruma, I guess that's his queen. But when he saw Lakshman, he became embarrassed, and so quickly stood up with folded hands, as did all the ladies present there. Lakshman angrily chastised Sugriva by saying, "You simply made empty promises, proving yourself to be a false friend and a most abominable person. One who receives help from a sincere friend and then does not repay that service is most hard-hearted and deserves to be killed." Okay, I don't think that's exactly the one that I was looking for.
The quote you were looking for, where we should kill people who don't keep promises?
It was probably
that's
like really
today's
close
lesson.
to that. Thank you.
We'll see you tomorrow on Wisdom of the Sages. It's a beautiful day, every beautiful day. Okay.
But he says something about how it's the greatest sin or something like that to be ungrateful. And somewhere right in that area. Maybe someone else.
And then Chapu posted something.
What did Chapu come to it? I'm from the purple.
Our understanding, it is sometimes said that the Lord is situated in the heart of the thief as well as in the heart of the householder. And the super soul in the heart of the thief. The super soul in the heart of the thief dictates, go and steal things from that particular house. And the same time, the Lord tells the householder, now be careful of thieves and burglars. These instructions to different persons appear contradictory. Yet we should know that the super soul, the supreme personality of Godhead, has some plan, and we should not consider such activities contradictory. The best course is to surrender the personality of Godhead wholeheartedly, and being protected by him, remain peaceful. Now I'm completely lost.
It's
your lesson today is steal. If the Lord tells you to steal, you steal. Where are we going with that?
No, it's very interesting because it's very appropriate to what we just read, which was that, the earth says to Prithu, and she's in her prayer to God, even the activities of your devotees could not be understood. What to speak of your pastimes? Thus, everything appears to us to be contradictory and wonderful. And I'm in my Oxford studies.
I heard you had your Oxford studies today. You have them today, right? I tried to have a meeting with him, and he's like, "Well, I have my Oxford.
I have my
studies
Oxford
today."
studies. Thank you. Yeah, so today I have one of my meetings. So in my Oxford studies, we're reading about Bhagavatam, and one section was about fascinating pastime, right, where Yudhishthir is feeling despondent because so many people have died on the battlefield of Kurukshetra to make him king, right? He's not doing exactly what Sugriv wasn't doing. He wasn't living it up. Actually, he was just feeling, just a sense of responsibility for it, and he was feeling depressed about it. And even Krishna couldn't console him. So who did he go see?
Let me see. Mara?
What's that? I was zoned out. I'm sorry. I was collecting the takeaways.
She's collecting the Raghunath, who did he go see?
I was zoned out. I was looking at Mara collecting the takeaways.
You guys. He went to go see Bhishma. Yudhishthir went to go see Bhishma. Are you listening at all?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
I didn't know it. Sometimes I just don't know.
Of course you know
things.
that. Of course you know that Yudhishthir went to go see Bhishma, who's lying on the bed of arrows, right?
Oh,
And then they begin to speak about all the suffering that the Pandavas had gone through, right? Bhishma's lying on a bed of arrows, right?
Can you
in other words,
imagine that?
He's got hundreds of arrows through his body, and he's like
Going
lying
through his body, and now he's just like laying down on the arrows, like hovering in the sky above the arrows.
Yeah, but he's suspended by all these
Suspended.
arrows. Yeah, and he's thinking about poor Yudhishthir and all that he's suffering, right? And he's saying, all that you've all been through, no one deserves this kind of suffering. Certainly you haven't deserved this kind of suffering. Well, then why did he suffer? Right? And he begins to go through the different reasons why it could be that he suffered. He says it could be the element of time, but then he kind of rejects it. It could be karma, but he rejects that. And ultimately comes to this just must be somehow the will of the Lord, right? The will of the Lord. In other words, everybody's under this law of karma until you fully give your life to the Lord. And then whatever's happening in your life is by the will of the Lord, even the suffering.
Fate is the language of God.
Oh, okay. I can just throw that
Take
out
that
there.
one away.
So in any case, what we go through in life, this is our formula. We give our life to God, and the suffering that we accept, the suffering that we experience, even if we can't fully understand it, that's okay. We say, I'm in God's hands now. And whatever suffering has happened to me, I'll use it as an opportunity to grow. That's all I have to say, Raghunath.
Well, that's good.
It's a little something I learned in my Oxford studies.
In your Oxford studies. Well, good. Thought you were just did that so you could join the frat. It's like Animal House over there. All right, Mara, what do we got to take with us today?
All right, we got some good stuff today. Everything is right.
Everything is
Okay.
right. It's all right.
Help yourself and others reconnect.
Don't even remember saying that, but okay.
I think that was Kaustubha. Sorry.
Yeah, you were on the chat board at that time.
I
Talking about
was,
the
I was
Smiths.
writing you on WhatsApp thinking I was writing the chat board. Kostu was like, why are you sending me messages? Go
See
on.
the world through a positive lens.
See the world through a positive lens. Okay.
The material world is having a party on the Titanic.
That was a good one. I just came out with that one. I just
Okay.
thought that one.
Search for the benevolence in all situations.
Yeah.
We need tapas and a thin skin.
We need tapas and a thin skin. Okay. We need a thick skin and a thin skin.
Right.
A thick skin and a thin skin.
Keep your mind fixed on the spiritual intention.
Okay.
Austerity pacifies the mind.
Yeah.
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 Austerity is the real wealth.
Okay.
Uh,
How about austerity is the wealth of the Brahmanas?
Yeah, how about that one?
No, what
That's-
was that one?
That's what I had, then I changed it.
Oh, you changed it.
No, I had
You-
written that down, and then I was like, let me
Okay.
make it shorter.
Oh, austerity. How
You know,
short
Raghu's
was it?
always
You wanted to
complaining.
remove one word from like a 5-word phrase or something like that.
Ragu's complaining that it won't fit on a coffee mug, you know?
Okay.
Fit on a mug.
Yeah, he won't wear the t-shirt if it has too many words on it. Don't chant the everything's wrong mantra.
Don't do it. Don't chant the everything's wrong mantra. You'll find things that are wrong.
And Hare Krishna summer camp is the best.
There you go.
What about fate is the language of God?
Fate is the
You
language
just
of
came out with
God.
that a second ago, Raga.
Yeah, so what? You can't add last minute. It's called the last minute hashtag. What the heck?
What was it again? Say it
I
again.
didn't know there was a time window for our takeaways.
Fate
Say it again.
Fate is the language of God.
Fate is the language of God.
You're gonna say that in your Oxford group, and we're like, "Oh, he's so. Oh, I'm glad he joined our
I was
group."
thinking that fate is the language of God.
I'm banging at the window. That's mine. That's mine. Oh, everybody. What a nice way to start our morning. Beautiful way to start our morning. Hearing transcendental literature. We do this every day. Srimad Bhagavatam every day. And tomorrow is a sleep-in Saturday. You've been waking up early to get on the show. I got some good news for you. You can sleep in an extra hour or two because we are starting at 8 a.m. for Q&A day. If you have a Q, we hope we have an A for you. Questions day. We go live on Facebook. It's a good time to tell your friends to join in. And also Sunday interview day. I'm looking forward to it. As for now, thanks everybody for joining us. Hands in the air, a big Harry Bowl.